Well, hello, this is Tina van Leuven, Practical Joy Alchemist, and I am so passionate about supporting others on their sacred healing journey to allowing more joy into every area of their life and letting that ripple out into the world. I've also been a pet nanny since 2015, and I'm very blessed to be surrounded by many extraordinary healing angels. And most of mine have 4 legs and fur. And that's why I am absolutely thrilled to be having a Joyful Connections conversation with a very special guest here today, Reagan Pasternak. Hello, Reagan.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes. Well, a little bit about you for those of you joining us who may not have been blessed to meet you yet. Reagan is a Canadian-born actress from Toronto in Canada, but she is living in Los Angeles. She's the youngest of 4 siblings with 2 sisters and 1 brother. And she began singing at the age of 7 and soon after fell in love with theater, training in the Meisner technique, among others. She also performed in award-winning improv groups and musical theater productions and was awarded a full scholarship for performing arts. Almost immediately out of college, she booked the lead in a Disney TV series directed by Sean Levy called In a Heartbeat, starring alongside Sean Ashmore. She has starred in numerous TV shows and films, including MTV's Jailbait, Hallmark's A Christmas Visitor, Welcome to Mooseport, CSI Las Vegas, Girl Meets World, Masters of Sex, and was a lead in the critically acclaimed dramedy series Being Erica, produced by Temple Street Productions. Reagan has also been nominated for multiple Gemini Awards and has numerous awards and scholarships for her music. An avid animal lover, Reagan enjoys working with LA-based animal rescue groups such as Hope for Paws and supports various animal causes such as Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation, PETA, the Animal Rescue Site, and the Humane Society of the United States. And she has just published her debut book, Griffin's Heart, Mourning Your Pet with No Apologies, which is published by Creatures Aligned Press and is available on Amazon. She started writing Griffin's Heart after the death of her soulmate animal, Griffin, as a way to help heal her wound and find meaning in her grief. And through this process, she began to understand that the crushing weight of her loss was not unique to her, and that for millions of people whose pets and their family are their family, there was a need for a compassionate and insightful resource. And the book is everything she wishes she had had after her Griffin died. And it's her hope that readers will find comfort, insight, companionship, and hope in the pages. Welcome, Reagan.
So much. And that was just so well put. My gosh, I need you to come around with me to be my advocate, please. I need some help.
Oh, such a joy. I absolutely love everything about your book. I started reading it and I thought, wow, this, as you say, would be the book that you wish you had had, but I know is going to be comforting so many people. And there's so many things I'd love to talk about and dive into. And one of them, I would say, I think this book ought to be at every vet's clinic, because for anyone who has gone through the loss of one of their furry friends, it is devastating and can be so difficult to comprehend for those who do not have that experience with a furry one. And also maybe even those who do, yet don't know how to deal with grief, right? So you want to share a little bit about how did this come to you to write Griffin's story?
Well, like you said, I had lost one of my first animals as an adult. I grew up with tons of animals, but one of my first animals as an adult by myself was a Griffin, and he was my little soulmate animal. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I think, there's just certain humans and animals that you have a different kind of connection with. And when he got sick and then when he died, I got so lost. I really did. And I felt very isolated, and I felt like there was a timeline and an acceptable amount of time that I was supposed to be grieving. And it wasn't quite going away. Long story short, I do talk about this at the beginning of the book, but it ended up manifesting in some anxiety, and I guess I started having trouble sleeping, which I was attributing to all these other things that were going on at the same time with career and family. And ultimately, I finally went to see someone about my not being able to sleep. I went to see a doctor about that, and she got to the bottom of it really fast, and really validated the pain, which I realized how important it is to have someone really take your pain seriously. And that goes with all grief, not just animal grief, but animal grief, they call it disenfranchised grief for a reason, because it is not always taken seriously by society. So that first helped me kind of dive into really mourning him and actually giving him the goodbye that he really deserved, where instead of just, it's killing me, it's hard, it's so painful, let's push it away and move on with life. And I have come to really be a huge believer that is not the way I want to live my life. And I don't want to say goodbye to anybody I loved that way. And I'm also a huge believer that doesn't really mean you've said goodbye. It actually ends up meaning that you will manifest that pain in other ways and put up walls or not be able to love properly again, or it can become physical pain. There's literally a syndrome called broken heart syndrome. There's a Japanese word. Instead, that's much more lovely than the broken heart syndrome, but it's a real thing, and it comes from not treating acute grief. And so, you see in the background my dog walking in the back. Aww. You're gonna see lots of animals in my house. So that started me on this kind of path of learning my own grief, understanding my own grief, and it started me journaling, and it started a lot of that. So I started writing down my experiences in grief and what it meant to grieve, to mourn an animal, and I researched like crazy. And I realized there wasn't a lot actually on what it meant to mourn an animal. And so, oh gosh, so many things happened because I was acting this whole time. I couldn't quite, I didn't also know what I wanted the book to be. I knew what I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to be heavy. I didn't want it to be something that somebody who's grieving doesn't want to just pick up like a textbook kind of thing and have to get through all these, too much at once. And so I kept writing, and then I'd stop. But during that time, but it took me almost 10 years to finish this book because I just didn't know what I wanted it to be. But during that time, because I read so much, I mean, really, I've learned that I read a lot more than the average person. I'll sometimes read 3 books in a night. I can read really fast. So that
wow.
was something. Yeah, I know I can read really fast. So I like that was happening. And I was writing the whole time, but everything I read, I was connecting to, how does this apply to grief? What does this mean for, so ultimately it was all really meant to be. And then about 2 years ago, I really buckled down and I figured out what I wanted it to be. And I wanted it to not be a book. Well, it is a book, but I wanted it to also be very interactive. And I wanted it to be ultimately a keepsake, which, are your listeners just listening, or do they see anything? I don't know if they see it.
Well, if they're watching us on the video interview, they'll be able to see it. Yes.
So we decided to make it very on the most beautiful paper that we could, and the most beautiful quality that we could, so that people could. Oh, I'm going to try not to cry, but because this book I'm realizing is so heavy, because I've been writing in my own book. I've been using it myself because I just lost a dog a week and a half ago. So I've been filling it with his memories, and it makes me cry even now. But and there's like a pocket I have some for some greeting cards and things that people have given me since he's passed, and so we wanted it to be ultimately a way that a mourner who is lost can say goodbye. Mm-hmm. And I am definitely walking the walk these days, because I am using it for my own grief all over again. And it's even helping me. So yeah, I'm just really hoping that people feel that they can have some peace from it. That's what I really want.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Yeah, and my heart goes out to you because I know one of the fur babies that I looked after for 6 years, he passed away 6 weeks ago, and it was, yeah, it was an extraordinary experience. It was like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
wow, they just have a way of cracking our hearts wide open in ways that, oh, yeah.
I really feel you. And this, this dog, I mean, Griffin meant the world to me. And I haven't had, I've lost people and animals along the way that have been really hard. I lost my mom along the way of writing the book. I lost, and then now losing Jed. And, I realized that we want to run away from that pain. And, I actually just don't believe in that anymore. So I really don't. I feel like I don't want anyone to just walk away from me when I pass away. I want them to really remember me and cherish me and go through the feelings with me. And, and then the other part of, especially losing an animal because they're so innocent, is that there is this, often I'm hearing from readers now that there is this feeling of guilt. A lot of the time there's guilt that, guilt for not taking them on enough trips or walks or leaving them alone too long or feeding them the wrong thing, or all these feelings of guilt. And those things really, really block our heart. So yeah, just, I hope, because one thing I will say is that every single part of this book is so true to what I experienced and what I felt, and the ways that I found I was able to get through some of those hard feelings. I'm hoping that readers will feel that I'm leading them through, as well as while they're collecting their memories and placing photos and writing their own stories. I'm hoping that all that stuff that I was reading that I ended up interpreting into how to grieve an animal will help them get through too.
Oh, you absolutely will. So beautifully written. And reading it, it is like having you in the room with you, like having a really good friend nearby who really gets you and knows what it's like. And so guiding you on that. So I think one of the biggest things I got from reading through the book is the feeling of, wow, I am not alone in this. And I think one of the big things is that I'm surrounded by people who really get it, but we often joke about it. We say, you mentioned it in your book as well, that those who have loved an animal, until you have loved an animal, you haven't really loved. And you may have loved in lots of different ways, but animals have a way of opening your heart in, there's nothing like it, right? So unless someone has experienced that, then those who are not furry friend lovers will think we're crazy.
I know. Tons of people think I'm crazy. I'm just used to it by now. Like, oh well, if that makes me crazy, if it makes me crazy to love a sweet, fluffy, beautiful creature, then okay, fine. Then I think you're crazy that you don't love those kinds of creatures.
I know, right? Yeah, I love it because you say in your book this. It says, when people adore their pets, a part of me connects to them automatically. We may not have one other molecule of common ground in our bodies, minds, or spirits, but if you treat your animal like family and are a devoted caregiver, we can possibly be friends for life. I recognize something in pet lovers that feels comforting and familiar to me. And I've come to believe that this is because we are a certain kind of tribe that seeks out joy, light, and connection. I absolutely loved that. And I was just pondering this the other day because I was like, wow, you can see the tail wagging in the background here.
Oh, I love that. I love a good tail wagging.
Well, it's so true, isn't it? You can be connecting with people. How on earth would we have ever had this conversation if it hadn't been through the love of animals? And so how amazing is this that our furry friends, who you like to refer to as our beings in the book, can bring us together in a way. So I'd love to know, since you've written the book, have you experienced more connections showing up in your life that kind of feel as if your furry friends, your beings here and those who have passed on, are kind of orchestrating?
Oh my gosh, the thing is that I do talk about this in the book. I was raised with no religious foundation. Very secular home. I talk about this, that I've always had this kind of spiritual curiosity and longing, and I'm very open-minded, and so, I'm envious of people who know, oh, you crossed the rainbow bridge and there they are. And I really, really hope so. All I want, I said this to my husband today, I had to, get my poor puppy's ashes today, which was just so rough. And I just said, all I want is to see him again. That's all I want. And, it's interesting. And I don't know what it means. I wish that I had that foundation, but I did actually feel him with me today, which felt so good. It felt great, because he was my biggest protector, that dog. He was just, would not leave my side no matter what. He would do anything for me and my husband. And, we had him for 14 years, and I felt his presence so much with me. And, and then Griffin's heart was Griffin, who was a Devon Rex cat. Actually, he wasn't a dog at all. And I look at this book and I just think, like, that's for you, buddy. Like you little tiny, barely any hair on you, kind of weird cat. It's inspired an entire book that took me completely off course from my regular career. And honestly, as much as I love acting, I really do, but nothing has felt like this for me. Nothing has felt more personal and more authentic. And ironically, I'm doing all this press for it right now, and I've never liked doing press for acting. It's always made me uncomfortable. And this feels so good. And I think it's exactly what you just said. I think it's about the connection. I really do. I think it's about feeling connected to people who I know understand. And also knowing that if people felt the way I did when Griffin died, and the way I do now when my dog died, and honestly, when my mom died, I'm realizing that grief is a weird, hard slope. It is a really, really tough thing. And so I feel like if anybody, my best girlfriend is not an animal person. My very best girlfriend since high school, she likes animals, but she just doesn't get it the way I do. And she's gone through other grief, and she said that this is a grief book for people too, because it's basically allowing pain, and allowing pain to be there, and realizing that you can get through it. And then what happens to you when you actually get through it, instead of avoiding it or going around it. And I'm totally off track here as usual, but I don't know where we were going, but
it's so beautiful.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's so true. That's the thing. I think one of the things that I feel like what our furry friends are so good at, and feathered friends, whoever the animals that feel connection with, yeah, that they just have a way of really being able to open our hearts and to put our walls and barriers down, because it feels safe. And I guess in society, how many of us have grown up feeling safe being who we really are. And yeah.
You can have a fat day. You can have said the most awkward thing to someone that day that you are regretting and embarrassed about. And your animal is like, I'm here, man. I love you. I think you're the most beautiful. You might be stinky to other people. I think it's great. They're amazing. They just remind us that all of that is just BS, really. All those thoughts and all those worries, and they can access a different plane. And honestly, I really believe they also tap into that child in us. All of a sudden you're on the floor playing, and you're doing all these things that are so crucial for your spirit, honestly. And so, they access something else. And I think part of it is that because there's no language, you have to be intuitive with them. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it? What would you say are 3 qualities that your furry friends, your beings, have helped you to embody?
I think compassion is a big one. I think understanding that we're different, but we're the same. I think compassion is a big one for me, just because I do work in animal rescue, and you see how not everybody treats innocent beings the same as, you would hope. So that has made me have almost maybe too much compassion. If you asked my husband, he might say that it's maybe a little bit too much because it gets me down sometimes. But that, what else is there? I think it's just that joy can be so simple. Joy can be so simple. And for me, who overcomplicates everything and gets in my head and has anxieties, and it's so important, because right now we're fostering this mommy cat and her babies, and we've had them since the babies were 2 days old, and she was just a stray. So these tiny, beautiful 4 kittens we're obsessively in love with. I will go in there and just lie on the floor. We've like blocked off our dining room for them to have the run. And we just lie on the floor and they just crawl on us, sleep on our necks. And it's so different than taxes. It's so different than everything else. And it's so pure. So I would say pure joy. I don't know if that's 3, but I somewhere it's got to be 3 there.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think in that part, I love how you write in your book that you spoke about how Eckhart Tolle speaks about addressing an audience member's grief, and that he talks about pets as guardians of being. I love that.
Mm-hmm. So did I. It was it ended up becoming such a big part of my book, because I watched a talk. I love him. Who doesn't love him? He's such a special person. But I watched a talk where he was addressing a man in the audience, and this man, you just felt the brokenness of the try that I could relate to it so much, that I'm okay, but this happened, and I'm really having a hard time getting over it. And it was amazing how Eckhart Tolle dropped into this other state immediately, because he gets it. He's a huge animal lover, and he said they were guardians of being, and that they almost, never mind protect us physically. A lot of dogs are guard dogs, or cats will, only like you and be hissy with other people. So they'll physically protect us sometimes, or, but more importantly, I think, is that they really keep us connected to our soul, for lack of a better word, or being. And I was so taken aback by that. And oh God, I cried so hard and felt so seen when I watched that. But I think it inspired me to ask myself, why can they do that? And the answer is that because they are pure being themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why, so that's at the very beginning, that's one of the first chapters. And throughout the rest of the book, I don't call them fur babies or anything. I call them beings, because I feel like it gives them a little more weight, and it gives, and some importance in that they often lack by being called pets and stuff and all that, which is, it's fine. It's just semantics, but I just loved the word being for them, because I look around at my house. There's one over there. There's a little being over there on the pink blanket. Oh. Sweet dog. That dog we call her Nurse Luna, because she just helps everybody. So she's a being. That's what she is. She's not my pet to do what I want with her. She is a being, and I'm honored to be a part of her life, to take care of her and get to exist with her. She brings us so much joy. They all do, all these animals in my home.
So beautiful, isn't it? I look after quite a few dogs and cats who have come from rescue centers. And it's like, one of the things that really, really, really has touched me over the years is seeing how kindness can transform, the love and kindness, how it can transform one of these beautiful beings who's gone through a rough start, and then comes into a home where they are just loved with kindness, into opening up and really letting themselves be again. It's just like it's such an honor.
They're so forgiving. Animals are so forgiving. They also are proof that the body keeps the score, though. And that Luna, for example, that sweet mutt over there, she came from a terrible cruelty case that I won't even go into because it was so bad. And I was foster group that a rescue group that I had fostered with before, asked me if I could, can you just hold on to her for 2 weeks? We're going to find her a home. We just need for 2 weeks. And I really had a full plate at the time. So I was like, okay, 2 weeks, we can do it. And within 3 days of having her, I mean, I could see how badly she'd been hurt. You know, she had been so hurt, and she was so innocent, and immediately was so lovely with my son, who was only 3 at the time, and so sweet with Jed, our dog, who just passed. But when my husband would walk by her, she would splay on the floor and pee and scream. Actually, she would make this awful screaming noise because she'd been so hurt. And so immediately within 3 days, I started crying. I called the rescue. I'm like, I am not giving her to anybody else. I'm the one who needs to take care of this dog and make sure she's fine. Now she has none of that. She rules the roost. This is the alpha dog in our world. And actually she goes and has sleepovers with my son's best friend's family too, because she's my son's dog, but they also are obsessed with this dog because it's so badass. Am I allowed to say that?
Oh,
she is. Okay, good. She's so badass now, and she's so, so she just takes care of it. She just takes care of life, so, and you just see how the love and trust has transformed her, and it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding, it's awesome. It's awesome. They have so much to teach us. They just do.
Yeah. And one thing that you bring up there too, I think is really beautiful, seeing how that being in your loving environment has helped her. And yet, how does it also reflect back for us, right? Wow, if that pain can be healed within a beautiful furry one. And in order to allow that healing to occur, it's like bringing our walls and barriers down, opening our hearts. And so whatever grief may have been in there, it's kind of like an exchange of, wow, you think you're healing me. Well, I'm actually really healing you. And we're healing each other back to wholeness, Yeah.
100%. I don't know what I would do without my animals. I really don't. I think and that's the other part. And I talk about this through the book. Who we love and who we grieve is a reflection on us, actually, and what we need in life. So there is so much that I learned about myself when I finally leaned into the grief, honestly, when I leaned into it in a way. And I definitely want listeners to know that, my book, there's of course there's sad parts, but ultimately it's about getting to the lighter part. And I really try to make sure nothing stays too heavy for too long, because I really believe that that's not what our animals want for us. And that's not what we really want for ourselves. And we are able to rewire our energy and our thoughts to learn and grow. And actually, in my case, really, I felt like I became so much better. I really did. I felt like I became stronger. I love better. And it doesn't mean that a new loss doesn't hurt, because my God, when I lost my dog, I couldn't sleep again. It all started again where I would be waking up in the night going, how am I supposed to wake up in the morning and not see him? I couldn't, and that's why it sounds so egotistical, but I was like, I'm going to get through my own book now, because if I'm telling other people to do this, I have to do it. And truly within 2 days, I started feeling the feeling again of, okay, I am okay to untangle these feelings, and I am okay to, and also it feels so good to not just put them aside and move on with my life. It also feels good to, there's this thing that happens when an animal dies, especially, that it feels so incomplete, because it's like they were so lovely, and Jed especially was just lovely right to the very last second. And then I don't want to just close the book on him. I want to feel some sort of, I hate the word closure, but I want to feel some sort of honoring him, so that I can say, okay, I did that for you. I did that for you, buddy. I mean, and that's what I'm starting to do now, working through the book again. I'm just honoring him and honoring my feelings about him and remembering how he came into our lives and remembering, his funny idiosyncrasies and his, and I'm writing them all down so that I never forget them. So yeah, it's amazing. I feel like grief and love and all of that is inevitable. And so we got to wrap our arms around it a bit. And then it kind of becomes amazing. Not easy always, but amazing.
So true, isn't it? Yeah, one of your favorite sayings you say in the book is the way out is through. So true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did not come up with that, but it's something that I try to remember myself. I really do. I think that's really what the book is. It's just, let's get through it together. Let's ease into it and see who we are at the end of it.
Yeah. And I think one of the parts of going through the book, and as readers and those who have, I think for anyone who either has a beautiful being in their life or who knows someone who does, to have this book as a keepsake, as you say, it's so beautiful to give, will be such a wonderful gift in so many levels. It helps to move through the whole journey of that grieving process, and in the process of that, remembering all the things that made you smile. And it's like, wow, it's like they're putting, your heart's just been broken, and now going through this journey, it felt to me like, wow, it's putting all those pieces back together. And let's forget what it's.
That's so awesome that you're saying that, because this is why we have the Band-Aid on the heart. It's Band-Aid on the heart. It's the cover of the book, because exactly, it symbolizes, that, we can be fixed. It shouldn't always just be a Band-Aid, but it can be fixed, so.
Yeah, so beautiful. Oh, all right. So let me just have a quick little peek here, because it was, I love also how you have an exercise in there to draw your pet. How did that come to you? Because it's not just regular drawing.
No. So yeah, because of my chronic reading issue, I was reading a ton about the brain, and I had first read a book by Jill Bolt Taylor called My Stroke of Insight. If people haven't read that, oh my, it's
so good.
So good, right? Me and you, we get each other. So it really, I started really being fascinated with the right versus the left hemisphere of the brain, and what it meant to access the right side of the brain. And then there was a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And because of and what it was doing was it taught you ways to access the right side of your brain. And people who never thought they could draw before were becoming these masters, and it's unbelievable, and it's not a gimmick, it's a real thing. And so I just thought, what about grief? Everything was applying to grief those last 10 years. So I thought, what if we can access the right side of our brain and get into that flow state and that creative love zone that lives in that side of our brain, and draw an upside down drawing of our pet. And it's explained much more why an upside down drawing accesses the right side of your brain, but and it doesn't have to be amazing. It's just an exercise to, again, untangle the harder parts of grief. And for me, I found it so quirky and helpful, and I felt so proud after I did that. I really did. I felt I just wanted that to be part of the book. I really did. So yeah, that's the gist of it. There's more to it. There's tons of those kinds of exercises throughout the book. But yeah, that was a special one to me, because I really love learning about the brain.
Yeah, and I was reading, I was like, wow, I had never seen that before, and I've read a lot too. So it's like, oh, this is so good.
I love that. There you go. I got to show you something. How cool is that?
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, so many wonderful things. And now, one more thing I'd like to just ask. Well, we've got my furry one here at the moment joining us. You see the nose.
The wine.
Yeah. Oh, what's in a name? and how you came up with some of the names for your beings.
Oh, I write about that in the book. Oh gosh, now you're gonna get a glimpse into my weird head. But Luna and Stella were named after the stars and the moon. They were both named from my son, who was very little at both namings. But I thought that was sweet that he came up with the moon and the stars. So we thought, why not? And Jed was named actually after Griffin, because Jed, my husband is he's a musician, and he listened to a song by Granddaddy called Jed the Humanoid, and the words to that song are just so beautiful. Actually, the writer of that song just commented on my Instagram, and I almost started bawling my eyes out. I just felt so honored. But he wrote a song about a friend named Jed the Humanoid. So after Griffin had died and we adopted Jed, we thought, we'll name him Jed after the song, which is a tribute to Griffin, really. That and then we have a cat named Dr. Purpur.
I love that one.
That's the insight into my weird brain, because I'm also a true crime. I'm quite obsessed with true crime. It's an addiction. So there's a very famous forensic pathologist named Joshua Purpur, Dr. Joshua Purpur. So we really, well, the next cat we get has to be called Dr. Purpur. So I mean, just be perfect. That's a glimpse into some of the names, and they keep coming. I mean, we got those kittens in the other room I know I'm not giving them all away, let's be honest. And we're going to have to come up with some good names for those guys too.
Oh, so funny. So how has your book been received amongst your peers in the acting industry?
I think actors are inherently compassionate, and there's a lot of animal rescue that revolves in the industry. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling good and grateful that there's this kind of an outlet. Man, I needed an outlet. I remember I definitely needed an outlet. So yeah, so people have been really kind, and almost more exciting to me than even people in the industry have just been strangers who are telling me what it meant to them. And that's the stuff that I wasn't really prepared for when I was writing the book. You just kind of, when you have an idea, you just write it, you just do it, I had no idea where it was all going to go. And so I tried to think that I was writing it with one person sitting beside me, telling me how they were feeling. I kept trying to do that every time I would sit down and start writing, but I forgot that there was going to be strangers reaching out to me after, telling me that they were helped, or even people reaching out to me saying, I didn't know what to say to my coworker who lost their animal because I'm not really an animal person. I gave them the book, and it helped them so much. And thank you. Those kinds of things those are just such a big bonus. It takes my breath away, really, is what it does.
So beautiful. I love that too. That's such a great reminder, realizing that, wow, even if anyone who is watching this or listening to this is not necessarily an animal person, if we call it that, wow, you have friends in your life who are, loved ones who are, and being able to read this yourself to get a better understanding, to create deeper connection, or know how you can better support someone, and then pass that gift on to them. Oh my gosh, that's really a gift that keeps on giving. So Griffin's heart is just continuing to live through so many people all around the world. Really, really beautiful. Wow. Yeah. So as we are wrapping up our beautiful, joyful connections conversation here, any last words that you would like to share with us?
I'm just so grateful that you're doing this kind of podcast, and I really am, and I can't wait to listen to more now that I've discovered you, because I just feel like this is the kind of thing we need right now. Kind of feel connected when the world has felt so isolated the last year, right? And I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Such a joy to connect with you, Reagan. And as you say, we are a tribe of joy lovers, right? Yeah, so beautiful. So on behalf of all the furry beings and the beings, whatever we wish to name them, who have been with us and who are yet to be with us and who are all over the world and who are here to guide us and support us to truly connect in with that innocent, magical child inside of us. And from that space, when we live from that space, our hearts are open and we see the light in others. What a different world we create together, right? So, wow, go ahead and go to griffinsheart.com to go get yourself a few copies of this beautiful book, one for yourself and for your animal friends to share with them. And maybe I would really love to extend an invitation to everyone who is tuning into us here, that if you were to get a copy of this and drop it off at your local vets, let's see how many vet offices, clinics around the world we can bless with this book and see how many amazing healing blessings this is going to provide. Because I've been into the vets and having to take a pet in for a checkup when someone has just lost theirs, and you can feel the devastation in the space. This would be like a healing balm for everyone there. So if you're up for the challenge, do it. And
so nice of you. Thank you.
And Reagan, such a joy to connect with you. And I do have one last question. One more.
Do it. I'm an open book.
Where to next? What's next after this beautiful experience, this beautiful book in the world? What's next?
Well, I'm kind of a nonstop kind of person. I don't like sitting still, but I just wrapped a television show that will be out on in the summer called Miss Pat. It's very funny, very, very edgy. And it's a comedy, and I play a really funny character on that. So that's out in the summer. We just finished that. But truly, I mean, and for acting, you just never know like now that I'm finished that, it's just going to be the next phone call that happens. But I'm really kind of focused on the book right now. And I'm just where, because for me, this isn't just putting it out there. It's, I really believe in changing this culture of grief. And I am absolutely loving focusing on that. So that's where my heart is right now. We'll see what the rest of the world, what happens, what the world has in store for me besides that.
Well, we will stay tuned, and we will have all the links to connect with you on social, to follow you. And for everyone who has not yet read Griffin's Heart, do yourself a favor, give yourself that gift, because as Reagan shared, it's not just for grieving the loss of a furry one, a beautiful, beloved pet. It is for supporting us with healing grief in any time in our life. What a gift. Such a joy to be with you, and I can hardly wait for the follow-up.
Yay. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you.